At 5 p.m. on January 4th, 2019, five 15-year-old girls named Julia, Amelia, Victoria, Karolina, and Gosia walked into a house in the city of Koszalin, which is in Poland. Some 10 to 20 minutes later, one of the girls' fathers received a horrific phone call. It was just the sound of his daughter's terrified voice begging him for help. Then the call dropped, and he was not able to get back in touch with her. You see, the girls had not walked into just any normal home. It was Julia's birthday, and to celebrate, the girls had decided to try out an escape room. If you're not familiar with what that is, it's just a room that you go into. It's supposed to be fun. You look around for clues and solve a series of puzzles until you finally discover a mechanism which lets you out of the room. Well, this house, which was once just a residence, was converted into a series of escape rooms. And so when the girls walked in the front door, they would have been in a waiting room where they were greeted by a 25-year-old male employee. He explained the rules to them, took their money, and then he let them into this room. And when they got in there, they would have seen a series of desks and chairs and all kinds of fun little objects for them to explore. And then the windows were boarded up to kind of increase just the feeling of like you're definitely trapped in this room. Well, the male employee, he locks them in this room, and then he walks back through the front office or waiting room into another office that has CCTV. So he sits there and he just watches them progress through this room to make sure they're being safe, not breaking any rules, and, make sure they're actually progressing. Well, after just a few minutes of watching them on CCTV, he smelled something like gas leaking. Now, back in the waiting room, there was another adjacent room right next to that that had a bunch of gas bottles in it. And these bottles heated the whole house. And he knew if one of those was leaking, he needed to get that shut off. So he left and he went back into the waiting room, and then he goes into the room with the bottles, and he's trying to find the one that has the gas leak when some kind of spark ignites that gas. And flame goes licking up the walls, and he's still trying to shut off the bottle, but he can't. And he sustains some burns, and when he does, he turns and he flees out of the house. Now, when he fled out of that house, he effectively signed these girls' death warrants because they are in a room that is designed to be impossible to get out of unless you solve this series of clues. Most people are in these rooms for an hour or more, and they clearly, in a state of panic, don't have time to go around and solve a bunch of fun little clues to get out of there. Furthermore, those windows, which led to the outside, were tightly boarded up such that they could not get the boards off. They couldn't break them away. And there were no emergency exits whatsoever. There were no buttons you could press that would automatically, unlock the door. There were no vents going into the room, nothing. They're trapped in there. Clearly, they recognized that they were in big trouble as the flames, came in on them. The room would have filled with smoke. And, of course, it's probably at this point that one of the girls called her father and then, in her panicked, coughing voice, begged him for help. But, of course, there's nothing that he could have done. 6 minutes later, the fire department showed up 6 minutes after the guy fled the building. But by the time they showed up, the building was pretty much engulfed in flames. It took them a long time to get the flames under control, and it took them an even longer time using specialized equipment to even be able to break into this room. And by the time they did break into the room, it was too late. All five of the girls were deceased. There were 4 people associated with this home that had been illegally converted into an escape room, or I shouldn't say illegally, but none of the proper permits had been done and nobody was informed. But 4 of the people involved with that facility were prosecuted for various different things. The employee who was there, who fled the building, was prosecuted for, I quote, not doing anything to help. Now, he claims that he did try and help, but the flames were just blocking his way to get to them. We'll never really know. We weren't there.